You're visiting the Mom Next Door and our stories of faith. I'm glad you dropped by for a visit. Please stay a while and hear what the Lord has done in the lives of moms just like you and me. Welcome, friends, to the Mom Next Door Stories of Faith. It really is the hard things that shape our faith and often propel us into a new area of focus, expertise, and of ministry. Karisa is joining me today to talk about a subject that has often been ignored or at least unspoken. Depression and hopelessness is all too common, and it struck her home very personally when her son Jonathan ended his life in 2014. Karisa, I bet in some ways you wish you would never have to go back and talk about that terrible time. Yet by sharing your story, it also honors your son's memory and extends a hand of compassion and understanding to others as they navigate similar circumstances. So thank you for taking the time to share your heart with us today and your story.
Thank you for having me.
And you can just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more. Take us back into your story.
So I grew up in a home that projected faith, but it was with a lot of mixed signals, and that also included abuse. So I myself struggled with my identity in Christ, with being loved, and made attempts at suicide myself. But it was when I was 20, I became pregnant with Jonathan, that's what changed my life, because suddenly my decisions had an effect on another human being. And I realized I could make good choices or I can make bad choices. And I wanted to make good ones. And so I I basically put up my hands and I said, God, I've made a mess of everything. What can you do with this? And he leaned in and said, let me show you. And he started to build a support system around me. He gave me godly friends that spoke truth into my life and challenged me when I was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And slowly but surely, I became more confident in who I was and in what Christ wanted me to do. So with that equipment in place, I tried to pass that on to my son, Jonathan. And then later on, there's 10 years difference between him and his brother, and then 13 years difference between him and his sister. So,
wow.
Yeah, a little bit of a gap.
Yeah.
But I pass those tools that I had learned, for my own life of, moments when I get down, like, how to kind of work through those things. I passed all those things to them and hoped that they would have, a better chance, than I started out with.
Yeah. So could you tell us a little bit about the years when all your children were small or the growing up years as you were raising them?
Yeah. So Jonathan, I raised him as a single mom, and he was vibrant as all get out, so much fun.
Mm-hmm.
He was very good with older people.
Oh.
Felt at ease, kind of was wise beyond his years at times, and just loved God and loved people. And he started having some health issues just at the point when he started walking. He'd limp for no apparent reason, didn't seem to be in pain, but so much so that he would revert back to crawling. Nobody had answers. He went through all kinds of testing and nobody could, and it was so intermittent, it was hard to even catch it when it would happen. But it started happening more and more frequently. And from the point of about 3 years old on, pain started to happen with it as well.
Wow.
And we started to pick up on some of the signals, some of the precursors of it, and if he was under a high amount of stress, if he had some kind of sickness or injury or anything along those lines, that would happen. And we just, tried to deal with it as we could, because, we'd take him to doctors and it's all in your head, or it's all like, there's no, there was no answer. And he was tired of getting poked and prodded, and I was tired of putting him through that.
Yeah.
We since know, and there's been a lot of genetic breakthroughs since him, that potentially he was battling a connective tissue disorder.
Oh,
And we know that his brother has the same symptoms.
okay.
So we know that the depression rate among people that have chronic pain like that is definitely increased. And
Mhm.
as I said, the kids, the younger ones arrived much later,
Yeah.
and you know we've learned a lot in how to help Daniel, who is the middle one,
Yeah.
in dealing with those pain issues. A lot is controlled by diet.
Yeah.
um so we've definitely made some adjustments, and I hate what Jonathan went through, but I'm also grateful that we've learned from that to help his brother.
Yeah. It's so hard to
Yeah,
know. Like you don't dream
yeah,
of that when you become a mom, that you're
no,
going to have to work through those hard issues like that. And when you go to a professional, if they don't have the answer, then you're really stumped. It's really hard.
yeah. Correct. So you deal, and that's one of the things that I definitely try to tell anyone, whether it's dealing with depression and suicide or just dealing with raising kids, is, you do the best with what you have.
Right.
And that's what we did with Jonathan, and then, now Daniel and Natalie.
Yeah. And you don't give up. You never gave up, right? You
Yeah.
kept looking
Yeah,
for
exactly.
answers. You kept
Yeah.
trying to figure it out, like doing the best you can. Okay. So fast forward as he grew up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as he got older, he was stabilized for a while. We could kind of control things as a diet.
Yeah.
But when he became a teenager, all the symptoms started happening more again,
Okay.
and they were uncontrolled. Like, he was responsive to ibuprofen, he stopped being responsive to ibuprofen. The pain level started moving up his body and started affecting his breathing, and again, his head started affecting his thinking. And we believe that he had a perfect storm.
Yeah.
He played lacrosse. He had at least one concussion that we know of for sure, and possibly a second and a third one, and the last one he didn't even tell us. So, like, he went on playing, he went on doing his thing, and he was having symptoms of a concussion. He also was sick at the same time. So from that point forward, that was the end of his junior year, like, he was never the same.
But he kept powering through. He himself
Yeah.
was like just powering
Yeah.
through and powering
Yeah.
through.
Yeah. And, like, he started having hallucinations. So that part of it, is opens up a whole nother realm as a parent that you're
Yeah.
having to deal with and to address. And he managed to graduate high school with a lot of accommodations from the school, but definitely was not himself and not well. One of the biggest things was he gradually, slowly, but surely, started pulling away from friends, pulling away from situations, and really wasn't sharing as much of the struggle with
Mm.
people. We definitely saw signs that he was not well, tried to seek help, but at that point he was 18, and, like, you there's just this weird setup and weird system that cuts parents out of decision making, but yet we're still responsible for them. So
Right.
yeah, it's a hard place.
I think in retrospect, you have a different set of information than you do at the time, right? So at
Mm-hmm.
the time, you have what that person or that child is telling you, and you have things you're seeing as they
Yeah.
happen, but that's still a limited scope, because sometimes, I know sometimes I'm having a really hard day, or I'm feeling depression, or but I'm not going to let my guard down, and I'm not going to tell somebody. And so
Yeah.
that limits their ability to respond to me, right? And then
Right.
if I was to pull out journals, from 15, 18 years ago and read through them again now, I would have a different perspective of my own life compared to what I'm what I spoke about or how I lived things out, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right. We project what people, what we want them to see.
Yeah.
And what I've learned is to watch myself for that.
Mm.
I have, areas that I know if I start to pull away from those things, then I'm probably headed in a not very good direction. Not the least of which is people that, I need people. I'm
Mhm.
an introvert by nature. I'm happiest, curled up reading a book. Like it's not, but yet I understand I need people. And even after Jonathan's death, like I had to push back and understood that, I was gonna need people around me, even when I couldn't really take anything in. I could be
Yeah.
present, but couldn't, physically, just really engage my environment.
Mhm.
So I think that's one of the things that I really try to share with
Mhm.
mamas and, with parents of, you need that support system in place in good seasons and out of good seasons.
Yeah. Well, and I think the introvert, extrovert, sometimes it has to do with maybe the size of our circles and
Mm-hmm.
how we, like you said, engage within our circles. But in either circumstance, there is a circle, right? We're not
You need people.
standing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Introverts still need people. Like it's just where you draw your energy from. I mean, that's
Yeah.
really all it is. And, I can be with people, I can engage, but I, will go and do something to refresh, away from people. But I have had so many amazing things happen because I do stay engaged with people and opportunities and connections and
Hmm.
like that wouldn't happen otherwise.
Uh-huh.
And I think that's an important thing as a parent, to have established in your own life as well, and to set that example for your kids.
Well, that's even a path of discovery where to know myself and to know am I an introvert? Am I an extrovert? Where do I go to charge up? And that looks different, I think, at least in my experience, in different seasons of my life. When I've had like all my children at home, sometimes where I got my battery power was meeting with other moms, which really
Mm-hmm.
looked like an extrovert, right? And then there were some seasons where I was like, I just really want to be alone. And then it is so even figuring out how I work, and we think about as our children are growing, they need to be able to figure that out, and we need to give them space to be able to figure
Mm-hmm.
out where, like how do we that's a hard thing to have you recognize that in your other children, to be able to say, hey, let's try this different, or let's work through this, and
Yeah.
what do you need now?
Yeah, that's a great question because my kids are so different.
Uh-huh.
Daniel is an extrovert to the hilt.
Uh-huh.
And that took some getting used to from my husband and I, who are both introverts.
Uh-huh.
He wants to be around people. Where's the party? Like he's
Uh-huh.
like, and so we had to learn to adjust our thinking and to not crush that spirit
Yeah.
because, sometimes, for me, I was like, not everybody wants to talk to you. like, and I know that God brought that home. I was praying that God would help me to understand Daniel better. And there was a moment when I was facilitating a Bible study, and it was all on inheritance. So I had tiaras and purples and golds and pinks and like all this stuff. And so I'm carrying all this stuff in one day, and there's a mom on the playground, and Daniel goes, hey, hey. And I'm like, I'm bracing myself. I'm like, what is he going to say to her? He goes, she's having a party. Come on in. And I just was like, oh my goodness, that's part of God's character. I was seeing a part of God's character in my son and was like, I totally don't want to thwart that. And so, I really try to give him opportunities to connect with others, to be, where people are.
Uh-huh.
Whereas my daughter, she's still would be an extrovert, but she's kind of on that borderline.
Uh-huh.
And so she's a little harder to read sometimes, of like,
Hmm.
sometimes she wants to engage, sometimes she wants to just, do her own thing and curl up with a book. But finding that engagement and balance has been just so neat with her. We're homeschooling this year, and we have a co-op that we go to once a week. Or sorry, once a week. And just watching her engage those times, I mean, she needs that. I don't think we could just do straight up homeschooling and her not having, those times and those connections. And she rides
Yeah.
horses.
Oh, yeah.
Riding horses is something that engages her and, fills her up. I mean,
Uh-huh.
I can see her smiling from ear to ear. So
Uh-huh.
just kind of finding their little nuances and niches of what encourages them, and keeping
Yeah.
that communication open.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to balance everybody with every person in your family with
Mm-hmm.
a different style, You might your child might need to go to a party, but it doesn't mean it has to be hosted at your house, right? You have
Correct. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, there's all sorts of different ways to work that out. And I
Yeah.
can see where friendship would play a really good role in that. Like having good friends as a mom that we all recognize each other, have different ways that we minister to one another. We can come along one another as we're raising our children. And, I have one friend who's like, hey, I'm having a gathering and I know that this one of your children doesn't love big groups. I'm just going to have a couple kids over. Would you mind sending this child over? Whereas
That's
and
so
she
neat.
Yes, and whereas she knows that if she was having a party with lots of children, this one wouldn't really feel comfortable there. So
Mm.
how we can support each other as moms as we navigate and work with our own, I don't know, the way God made us, right? And the way that
Yeah.
he made each of our children, really built for community so that we can work in that. Now, I'm sure that you have seen the statistics since the whole pandemic, and I think what you're talking about is staying connected and not being so isolated that we start to struggle because we were created for community of some sort. Have you been watching the statistics, and can you share shine any light on what you've been seeing, and have you been drawn into some conversations to help support other women?
Yeah, that is a great question. I think at first I kind of was struggling with a bit of depression over COVID myself, and
Yeah.
that loss of, connection in face to face
Yeah.
opportunities. But what God revealed in that for me was that it was an opportunity. It was an opportunity to learn to connect in different ways that maybe we had taken for granted and gotten out of the habit of. Writing letters, phone calls. One of the things that you see throughout scripture, the whole reason why we have some of the New Testament is because of letters written from prison to people. And at times, I mean, Paul in particular was in isolation when he's getting these
Wow.
letters back and forth. So God really brought that to mind of, you know, we we think that this is the only way to communicate face to face,
Yeah.
but there are other ways to encourage, with scripture. I had people sending me scriptures on a consistent basis when they couldn't necessarily help in another way.
Uh-huh.
And I used to look forward to those cards. Those cards would come in the mail, and I could go such a long time without anybody ever even saying Jonathan's name. But I had one person regularly sending me a card, and she would say, thinking of Jonathan. Like, that meant so much to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that is something that we can do no matter what circumstances are thrown at us.
Mm-hmm.
Find creative ways to communicate. Our neighborhood did a bear walk, where people would put bears in their windows, and you could take parents would take their kids out and go, oh, there's a bear. Like they would,
Oh,
and
cute.
it was a way for neighbors to connect at a distance.
Hmm.
So there's all kinds of creative ways you can do that.
That's fun. Like a Where's Waldo in person. They
Yeah,
walked around, looked
yeah,
for the bears. How cute is
yeah.
that? Yeah, you bring up a really good point because for us, we moved during 2020, 2,000 miles from what we'd always known as home. And so for us, that wasn't, I mean, I don't know that that was isolation, as in we were in like a pandemic isolation, but we were in a totally new community where we didn't know anybody. And so that is isolating, right?
Mhm.
And it caused me to see the relationships of those back in Oregon in a different way, where I was used to being in that relationship where I'd go to a coffee shop or I'd even be at the grocery store, run into somebody and then end up talking, 30, 45 minutes later, we're still standing in the grocery store. You see people all the time. That you're familiar with and that you have connections to, and then remove me from that situation 2,000 miles away. And again, it's isolating. And so it
Yeah.
makes you take a run at things again, like, okay, how am I going to keep connected and establish those relationship, not establish them, but to here I had these relationships. Do we just crumple them all up and throw them away because I can't do them in the way in which I used to do them? Or am I going to say, it's just going to look different? What am I going to do? How will we connect that looks different? Welcome Zoom and welcome, the social media thing. That's one good thing about social media is that we can connect. It is different, but it is an aspect that we can use to connect. And I do think that again, we're only showing that which we want to be seen, right? But there are some times I will see somebody post something and maybe a series of posts that I'm starting to get a little concerned about them. And I think I could just ignore it and pretend like I didn't see that in my feed. Or I can send them a private message and say, how are you doing? I've seen a few posts lately that I just want to check in on you and see what's going on. How can I help you? Can I pray for you? And I think that's really important to do.
Yeah, you're tapping into just a major aspect of awareness, and I think that's what COVID did. I think some of these things were already in existence and were undercurrents, and COVID brought it to the surface. And when
Mm,
things get brought to the surface, we can begin to address them. And I think
mm,
you're very wise to pay attention to kind of patterns that you're starting to see and reaching out and to keep reaching out and saying I see you. And
mm,
that's really a lot of times of like even when after Jonathan died and like the visitation, of course all his high school buddies and everybody's coming through the line, and I didn't. It was funny, I had friends said you can kind of relax and sit down if you need to or whatever. I was like, no, it's I want to see them. I didn't want a single one of them walking through that line not knowing that God sees them, I see them, and that they had value.
mm.
Um and I think that's oftentimes all it takes is just reaching across and embracing that awkwardness at times and going,
Mm.
I see you, I hear you.
Yeah. How old was Jonathan when he passed away?
18.
Okay.
He had just graduated high school.
Okay. And so those friends that came were most likely all in that 19 to
Yeah.
16 probably cluster. Which have you been able to connect with some of their moms too? And have you heard how that has affected the other youth?
I did, and I actually even got to talk to some of those youth. Even years from now, I still am in touch with some of them,
Yeah.
and check in with them to see how they're doing. It you know it was devastating for
Yeah.
for many of them, and some of them were struggling themselves with
Hmm.
their own. mental health. And one young lady approached me. They did a fundraiser on Jonathan's behalf, and one young lady met me out, like waited. I was talking to other people, and she waited until I was done to share with me that she herself had been struggling with her value and with thoughts of taking her own life. And she saw the line wrapped around the building at this fundraiser for Jonathan. And she's like, Jonathan had all these people loving him that he may not have even been fully aware of. How many people do I have like that in my own life? So hearing their stories, encouraging them, I regularly, Jonathan's Facebook page is like a legacy page now. So I will post like on birthdays and different things, which his birthday's coming up. And, just say, hey guys, I'm thinking of you all. I'm praying for you, so that, his friends see that as well.
I feel like that example of that young lady saying that to you, it just makes me think that, as sad as it is, horrific that you've had to walk through this, in a way, I wonder if your loss of Jonathan also was to help save other youth. And I don't know if is that a strange thing to say or to recognize, but I think that if there were other youth there at this pivotal point, by watching the results and being there at the service, they had what do you call it? Their contemplation and their evaluating it made them take a step back and maybe prompted conversations in their homes to help people intervene in their lives.
Yeah, I think that's accurate. The thing is, was Jonathan's death good? No, clearly not. It's made my children's life harder.
Yeah.
It's made my husband's and my life more challenging. However, God is a good God, and he uses things, for our good. I can tell you from the get-go, there were things that I saw God preparing in advance before we ever even walked through this, down to, I'm not originally from this area, but my family is, my extended family is, and where to bury him. I didn't have any attachment to any place or any knowledge of a set place where I wanted him to be buried. And there was a cemetery that he and I would go walking at, and it's beautiful. And I thought, well, that's really the only one that I had any kind of connection with. And so I went and met with the director there, and come to find out my great grandparents are buried there.
Oh.
And in an area that is beside the pond, which is like this old, beautiful, it's been there for forever kind of place. And because my great grandparents were buried there, he was allowed to be buried there, because it's not one that they offer to the public otherwise. So that was a God thing. That was a God moment. That was a comfort. So
I cannot imagine the weight of the decisions that you had to make. And you brought up the logistics of deciding where to bury. And also you mentioned turning a Facebook page into a legacy page. So I wonder, there's no way to prepare for this because it's unexpected. And we talked about that a little bit earlier before I hit record, about it being expected or unexpected. And I'd like to go back and touch on that for just a second. But where can we go, and where did you find support? Because all of a sudden, is there a checklist? How do you even know what to do? This is, it's so, I don't know what to say except for unexpected.
Yeah. What I said earlier about being prepared in season and out of season is vital. So for starters, like I couldn't take any new scriptures in, new information in. But in college, I got involved with what's called navigators. And they laid a foundation of scripture that I hadn't memorized. And so I could remember those, I would read new scriptures and it was it was like reading just words on the page. I literally couldn't take anything more. And so I would just say those verses over and over, over and over when I couldn't sleep, when I could sleep, like it just it became a mainstay. So I would say cultivate your relationships, cultivate your church family, like have some things established so that when trauma does happen, because really, let's face it, it's going to happen for almost all of us. We all experience loss.
There's some sort of trauma.
Right. Yeah. That you are more equipped and prepared and have some tools in your toolbox that you can utilize in that moment. So the first thing that we did was called friends.
Yeah.
And had a circle of friends praying. Like basically within an hour's time, I had probably about 20 people in my house. And we were all numb. All of them had connections with Jonathan, and yet we could pray and cry out. Allow other people to help, because you aren't, I mean, there's just stuff that you can't handle.
Yeah.
One of the things that I'm always telling people is shock is a gift. It truly is too much for your body to handle a loss of this magnitude. And allow shock to do its job, because at some point you'll feel again, you'll start feeling, feeling those emotions again. But shock is kind of that cushion in between to give your body a chance to have some healing. So, just keep those things in mind. And then the funeral director was an immeasurable help, because he walked me through, he said, here's what you're going to be feeling. He really helped me with the visitation, because he said, take the time. We were given an hour beforehand to just have as a family alone with Jonathan. And then people, started coming through. And he said, once people start coming through, it will stop being about you and it will be about them. And ministering to them. And he was dead on. And he also warned us that people would say crazy things, and they did. He, said, do what you can. Don't take any of it, on or in. Like, it was just having that person equip you was huge. So ask questions, allow others to kind of help you to understand what you're going to experience. And I just realize it's messy. I mean, it all is messy, and you're not going to necessarily say all the right things or do all the right things. Tempers flare. And one of the things I would love to emphasize is people are different. How my husband grieved, how I grieved, how my children grieved, we're all so different. And yet there's also that aspect of collective grief and friends and family, like how they grieved. So finding ways to connect and yet still grieve the way you need to grieve is really vital and important. And to not necessarily judge other people that they're not grieving the way that you are is important too. My husband was a huge help. Like he took on all the technical stuff, because he was 18 and he had no will. His assets were divided between his dad's, family and I, and which is weird. It's just plain weird. And not my focus for sure.
Right.
My husband handled all that. And so it was such a relief, but it was a practical way that he could help in ways that he couldn't help otherwise.
Okay. So give me the tools. What can I do as a friend? I did have a friend who lost a child recently, and I wasn't sure what to do except to show up and grab a piece of paper and show up with Kleenex. And, I may not be able to even do it myself, but I know you're going to need meals. I know you're going to need to travel. I know somebody's going to need to take care of the animals while you're traveling, and somebody's going to need to get you to the airport. And that was all I knew to do, is to sit there with tissues and a blank piece of paper, to maybe just be a note taker and to create somewhat of a map, so that when I left the house, whoever came next knew. Like, I wanted my friend to know one thing: Here's the piece of paper. Here's the notebook I've left you. The next person that comes to visit you, tell them to check the book. I don't even know if that was good advice, but it was all I knew how to do. So what can I do better? How can we support our friends in very tangible ways in these circumstances?
That is amazing. And you did incredibly well.
Okay, that's
That is
good.
exactly, yeah, that is exactly what I had people do for me. The biggest thing is to help with what you have. Don't withdraw.
Yeah,
Don't pull away. I did have some that did because they just didn't know what to say. So they said
right,
nothing.
right.
And you know, accept the fact that you may not say it perfect and work through, but
Yeah.
just having people be there, be present. I had someone who, so they had two coolers outside. So, if I wasn't up for visiting with anybody or my family wasn't, that they would leave meals in. So one was for meals and then the other was water. And I had one person that's what she did. She supplied water the whole entire first few weeks. And that was life-giving to me because there were times when I couldn't eat. And so having that water constantly, and I was drinking it all the time, was a small, simple thing. But I mean, we're talking now almost 9 years later, and that is still something that brings a smile to my face. She brought what she could.
Yeah.
And I think that's the big thing is bring what you can,
Hmm.
offer it up. I had one friend that a few weeks after started inviting me to go to an art class. And that was not, I have some tiny bit of art skills, but that's not my thing.
Yeah.
And yet it opened up this world of connection that I could create something and yet be with people and yet be by myself. I mean, it
Mm.
was such a neat
Hmm.
dynamic. And so just bring what you have and offer what you have, and maybe
Hmm.
they take it, maybe they
Hmm.
don't hold too tight to it having to go a certain way.
Hmm. Well, I'd like to ask you about your website that you have now and tell me about what you're doing over there and also some writing that you've been doing. Connect me to your locations.
My website is Turning the Page on Suicide. And that whole phrase actually came out of interactions with Jonathan all through his growing up. Every time he would get frustrated or be like, I'm done with my math, I'm done with like whatever, I'd say, okay, do we stop the story here or do we turn the page? When I spoke at the funeral, that was the phrase that I started with and I ended with, of like, I wish that Jonathan had continued turning his page, but he hasn't. So I have to decide, am I going to turn the page on his death, or am I going to let this be the end of my story? And, that I choose to turn that page. So the blogs, it started, I first started talking to people on Facebook because I wanted his friends to know that they had value. And so I basically grieved out loud. And by grieving out loud, it was a way of showing them it's not easy, but it's good and it's worthwhile. And so then, after months of doing that, I started doing the actual blog and created Turning the Page on Suicide. And ultimately, I want it to be a resource. I want it to be a place where people can come and, find those tools that they're looking for and what they need, to ask questions. I would love to start a conversation and have people either email me or, ask questions. And then as far as the writing goes, so I've been writing devotions. I have a devotional book ready to go, just trying to decide how best to publish it.
Uh-huh.
And that is actually a collection of many of those first days
Mm.
of me talking through my
Mm.
grief.
Mm.
So I've got that, and then God is allowing me to do some fiction writing as well. So I'm part of a word weavers group, and that's my work in progress. There is actually on a foster family. Like I'm learning a lot and growing a lot, and
Wow.
having a lot of fun with that. But it's also not an easy subject and
Yeah.
hard. So,
Yeah.
so yeah.
Do you have Instagram or a Facebook page that you work on publicly?
Facebook page, you can find me at Karisa Lynn Moore. That is my public Facebook. You will see that there is a private one, and I'll direct you to the public one.
Okay.
Yeah, that's my main connection and interaction with people is there on the Facebook page. And then I do have an Instagram account, but I'm not utilizing that fully at this moment, but
Okay.
definitely on the list of things I want to do.
Okay. Well, I will put a link to all of those things in the show notes. So that's just a click away. And I just wonder if you would close us out in a word of prayer. And I just thank you for your time today and for sharing what was on your heart. Yeah, I'm thankful.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This has been wonderful. Gracious Lord, we know that you did not spare your own son, that you gave him up willingly for us all. How can we not also take even the hardest of things and allow them to be glorified in your hands? Lord, I pray for any of the moms out there that are struggling with children who don't know their value in you yet. Lord, I just pray that they would come to a saving knowledge of who you are and security in the identity that they're made in your image.
Yes.
Lord, may the moms know that. May the moms know that they are made in your image.
Mm-hmm.
Lord, it's not about their perfection, it is about yours.
Mm-hmm.
And I just pray that you would help each of the mamas to love their kids with their whole heart, to love you with their whole heart, and to be equipped in and out of hard seasons.
Yes.
Lord, thank you. Bless this ministry. Bless Pam and her family. And Lord, just be with all the young people who are hurting right now. In your precious name, amen.
Amen. And friends, if you would like to find a place to connect, please find me over on Facebook as well. There's a group there that you can join, and it's called Tending Fields Moms Group. And I would love to meet you over there where we just support one another and pray for each other through the everyday lives of being a mom. All right. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye. I hope that you've been encouraged or challenged in your faith today, and that something we discussed prompts you to grow deeper in your walk with the Lord. If it has, make sure you tell a friend so they can grow along with you. And if you or a friend would like to be a guest and share about God's faithfulness in your life, please email me at podcast@tendingfields.net. Because when we tell of God's faithfulness, we never run out of stories.
Whatever is true, whatever is noble, think on these things.